Recording live from the Lucky Number 7 Lounge, this is Dine, Drink Vegas, the podcast. By and for everybody stuck at home but wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, a.k.a. the baller on a budget, and you have stumbled onto Customer Service Part 2, where Bill gives us an update on his customer service snafu situation with MGM. We're going to update you on some news of the day in Las Vegas. And of course, we're going to talk about our drink of the day, which melds two things together. One that I love, tiki, and one that Bill loves, bourbon. But before we can do any of that, it's time to bring in the founder of Dine, Drink, Travel himself. Of course, I mean the high roller, formerly of the High Plains, the leader in the luxury lounge, the king of comps, the Alabama slammer, the man who's always waiting for that limo to take him away to his next Las Vegas luxury resort. I mean, Bill. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, John. How are you tonight?
I am, well, it's been a very long work day, but I'm talking to my buddy online, and I've got a really good drink, so I'm okay. How about yourself?
I am good, and I will be better when you explain to me and everybody listening to us what exactly this is that we're both drinking, John.
So today's drink is called the Iron Ranger. It's a bourbon-based modern tiki drink, and it was developed at the famed San Diego bar Raised by Wolves. So you're not always crazy about tiki, even though you love rum. And we're getting close to the end of summer where I'm going to quit torturing you with so many tiki drinks, at least till next summer. But this one I thought might hit the sweet spot between the things I love about tiki and the things you love about bourbon. So let me give you the rundown of the ingredients. It's 2 ounces of bourbon. The original recipe calls for Maker's Mark Cask strength, which I did use in mine, but for my wife, I used Green Door, another wheated bourbon that's only 90 proof because she doesn't like hers as strong. 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lemon juice. I use lime. An ounce of pineapple juice, half an ounce of our homemade falernum, half an ounce of simple syrup, and a couple dashes of Angostura bitters. This one is shaken, and then it's strained into a tall glass. They say a hurricane glass. You will see the beloved glass of rednecks everywhere, ye old 16-ounce mason jar, if you look on my Twitter account. And it's strained out, served on pebble ice or just the bagged ice that I get by the gas station by my house, and garnished with a cinnamon stick. So, Bill, I kind of broke down the things I did differently. What did you do for bourbon, and did you make any other changes?
I made this almost exactly to spec. The only difference was that I used 3 ounces of bourbon rather than 2, because if 2 ounces of bourbon is good, then 3 would be better. But yeah, no, I used Maker's Mark Cask strength, which I had laying around the house because I helped a colleague named Leroy with an incredibly simple workplace project that was squarely part of my responsibilities. And his reaction was, I should buy Bill some Maker's Mark Cask strength. So Leroy, I know you watch the YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you for your contribution to the drink of the day. I did use something very nearly like 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lemon juice squeezed out of a fresh lemon because I decided to make this exactly to spec. Then everything else was exactly as is. There may have been 3 or 4 dashes of bitters rather than 2, but you've inspired me. Oh. And and I did put in the cinnamon stick. So I've got 2 reactions to this. One of them is at 8 ingredients: bourbon, lemon juice, pineapple juice, falernum, simple syrup, Angostura bitters, ice, and cinnamon. That's too many ingredients for me to want to fiddle with. But the second one, particularly given that the falernum is several ingredients of its own, but I think I like falernum. Like, I think my real learning lesson out of this is that may be something I make every once in a while because it's a really nice addition to some cocktails. My other reaction to this is that it's not the right level of sweet. And I can't decide if that means it should be less sweet. I just take out the simple syrup and only use the pineapple juice for sweetness, or if it should be a little bit more. And I realize that's a weird reaction, but there's something about this, like the play between the tartness and the sweetness. It's good. It's just I don't like the way that registers for me.
I suspect adjusting the amount of bourbon without adjusting the other ingredients threw the drink out of balance a little bit. Because I will say that with mine, and cask strength is no joke.
No.
And adding a whole other ounce of cask strength really complicates that. Because I did find that my wife's read sweeter than mine, but still in balance. And I made hers with the 90 proof. With the cask strength, I thought it was spot on perfect. I think if you added more of that cask strength, you're going to throw this thing out of balance. And what you have then is like a weird spicy pineapple whiskey old fashioned rather than this drink, which may not be a bad thing, but I don't think it's going to be quite the original spec at that point.
Okay, so that's actually fair, and I'm glad you pointed it out. Now, I will say, I like what I constructed. It's still a really good drink with all the right ingredients. They're just, as you pointed out, they're not in the correct proportion, and that almost certainly impacts the sweetness. Right. Now, what that's suggesting is that I would like, the original cocktail would be relatively sweeter than the one I've got.
Yes, it would be sweeter, but I think it's going to be balanced, especially with the cask strength. I will say I did a 3-ounce pour too. I just adjusted all the other ingredients accordingly, which is why mine wouldn't fit in a tiki glass. I have an insulated beer glass, 24-ounce beer glass, and the ice and the drink fit in here just about perfectly.
Yeah,
so
but that's become...
I do wish I'd gotten crushed ice.
Okay, and that's fair. And I didn't have the crushed ice. That's the one thing I didn't do to spec. I will say that's just kind of become my standard trick on this show. What would this drink be like if I added extra liquor? That has become my role on this podcast. Let's add an extra half a shot or a shot of liquor. That's what I do here.
Yeah, and I can't fault you for that. It definitely, candy's dandy, but liquor is quicker. Willy Wonka had it right. So I can't fault you to that, but I will say when built to spec, the balance between, and it is a sweet drink, but it's not a syrupy sweet, sorority girls at the beach drinking ridiculous things, too sweet, yard of daiquiri kind of a thing. It is sweet forward, but it's balanced. And I would think that if you had more booze, part of you is going to want more sweet to tame the booze, but part of you is going to be like, well, I'd need more spicy and tart if I add more sweet. And the whole thing's just going to be looking to make sense.
All right. That's fair. But no, I appreciate you sharing this with me. It is absolutely a good drink. It's not my favorite one we've made on this podcast, but it probably makes the top 10 list. The reason that I don't, in terms of how it tastes, the reason that I suspect I don't make it very often is I started making this drink a half hour ago, and I may still be making it for all I know. Like, it took a while, and that's not what I want to do when I'm like, ooh, it's Thursday evening, I would like a nightcap.
So I did have the thought when I was making this, and I'm still having this thought. I kind of wonder what if this was a blender drink. I am not much on frozen drinks. I think a frozen Iron Ranger might be really nice. It's triple digits here at Far West Texas today, much like it is in Vegas. I would think a blended Iron Ranger might have some hot weather potential. But yeah, this for me is good.
I wish you hadn't said that, John, because now I've got to go make another one, because you might be right, and I've got to go where I find where I keep the blender here in the top secret world headquarters of Dine Drink Travel.
I think at that point we renamed this drink from the Iron Ranger to the Kentucky Slurpee, but
fair. Good things come from Kentucky.
Yes, they do. Well, speaking of good things, there's also not so good things. So last week, our feature story was basically your slugfest with MGM Grand. And let me see if I could sum up. Bill books rooms. Bill wants to see if he gets better deals. Bill unbooks to check new rates. Bill can't rebook. Bill calls, gets a price that's livable. Bill can't get that price. Bill complains. Bill gets no response. Is that a pretty fair summation of about 6 weeks of your life?
Yeah, with the remembering that the no response was over. So I didn't start with phone because phone failed the first time. So no response over physical mail nor over email. So that is an accurate description of what happened. it was some terrible back-end infrastructure. It took way too long, and then they just didn't answer the dang message.
Okay. And so we shared last week that we thought this might be a product of reduced customer service staffing. Although we've had some snafus with MGM before, but this just seemed unusually difficult to get a response, as if those cutbacks really are starting to strain their system, which I said would not happen. I said the technology was going to save us. Most of what we do with the hotel is online. Fewer people make sense. Yeah, apparently I was wrong. So, Bill, I understand there's an update. So why don't you tell our listeners what happened next and whether or not you feel like you've gotten a livable outcome?
I've got a livable but not good outcome. So they eventually responded to me a day or two after we recorded this podcast, so roughly a week after the original email, which is roughly 6 weeks after the original physical email, which was roughly 8 weeks after the phone call, which was roughly 3 months after the original booking. Like, it took a while. And I want you to be super proud of me, John. Do you know why I want you to be proud of me?
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
Because they sent off my "don't mess with the good consumer," although I usually use a different word than mess, but we're a much polite company. They set off my "don't mess with the good consumer" thing when they, in their response, said, "So we apologize that sometimes prices can change suddenly and at the last minute." And I'm like, that's not the point. You had already taken my money for half of it. And after having taken my money for half of it, you changed the price on the second half of it. No,
right.
No, MGM, no. But I did not punch anybody through the screen. And I'm super proud. For one thing, it would have been hard being in Alabama to punch anybody in Nevada. And I feel like that would result in some, unpleasant consequences for my trip. So, what they said is, "We're so sorry this happened." And they said a couple of interesting things. One is that I had apparently contacted the wrong place for resolution, because these are work from home agents who couldn't possibly have gotten my physical mail, which begs the question of where my physical mail went in the first place. The second way that I apparently did the wrong thing, so to be clear, you and I and our friends are staying at the W. I didn't contact the W. I contacted MGM Rewards because I didn't book with the W. I booked with MGM Rewards. MGM Rewards was the source of the problem.
Right.
So I mailed MGM Rewards, who got the letter and apparently just like, well, doesn't apply to us, and I don't know, sat on it or whatever. And then when I emailed MGM Rewards, which at least had the decency to forward it to the W's customer service response. So maybe I contacted the wrong people, but I would argue two things. One, I made at least a reasonable choice because I contacted the people that I booked with through their publicly available contact information. And
right.
If it was the wrong place, it's still your company. Just forward this where it needs to go. It's not like I expected a response within 2 hours, right? I gave you more than a month. So, yeah, I was contacting the wrong people, but they got back to me. And after a little bit of stuff like sometimes prices suddenly change. And that's a terrible strategy for corporate PR, but letting that go. So they raised the rate, I want to say it was $800 or $900 in that second time. So it was a lot. What they gave me was a $350 discount plus a $50 room credit on each of the 2 rooms. So they gave me $450. So they gave me at least about half of what they owed me on the more generous to them interpretation of what they owed me. So at that point, I decided to stop fighting because I want to inconvenience the rest of the group. And you've got a good deal at the W. And we know that our boy Zero loves MGM properties. And it's kind of the point in the cycle where we need to just kind of quit fiddling with it. And at that point, they'd at least acknowledged I'm a person who existed. And yes, they did do a non-token effort at customer service recovery. So that was great. And I appreciate that. But ultimately, No, so it wasn't a terribly satisfactory experience. Like, what I would have loved is, even if it's the same amount of money, we're so sorry we did the wrong thing. Like, words matter. And they did the wrong thing. And if you can't use the right words, at least the kind of half-baked, we're so sorry that happened to you. But when their response was talking about, oh, yeah, prices changed at the last minute. No pendejo de don't. Not once you've taken my money.
Right. We've engaged in the transaction.
Right.
At a stated agreed upon set of prices. The price did not change once the and I'm with you on that fundamentally, but I'm glad you can at least live with the outcome.
Yeah, by the way, listeners, if you don't speak Spanish, pendejo is the Spanish word for I respect your family and hope to learn more in a group meeting at some later point in time.
Yes, and use it with strangers often, without smiling.
As you and I had the opportunity to do when I was in your town on Saturday, and we and a bunch of rattlesnakes attended an asado festival.
Yeah, we decided it would be a bright idea to drive out into the middle of the desert at some random country store on an unpaved road because there were a group of strangers cooking asado in the parking lot in order to raise money for somebody's family where they're dealing with a child who has cancer. Because that's a really good use of your Saturday. So basically, we sat out in the heat under a tarp, being the only white people around, ate 3 different plates of asado, drank Mexican beer, and had a really great Saturday.
That was a phenomenal Saturday. But we should probably talk about other places where people can have a phenomenal Saturday, because you and I can go down this rabbit hole for a while. So what about Vegas?
Well, unfortunately, one of the best places to hang out on a Saturday is no more. Scott of Idle Vegas reports that beloved taco joint Pinche's Tacos has closed at Container Park, blaming increased operating costs, which I'll buy that, and decreased foot traffic that the owner says may or may not be related to what's going on with ICE and immigration. And we are not a political podcast, so I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole because I don't feel like losing listeners from one side or the other of that debate today. The salient point for Las Vegas locals is that Pinche's other location is still open, but it is way the heck in residential Vegas. So if you happen to be a tourist, no more tacos at Container Park. So sorry. And this makes me sad because that's a great spot to eat a taco.
Pinche's Tacos estaba excelente y me disfrutaba mucho. We went there 2 or 3 years ago when we were downtown. So it was one of those times where you had to come a day later than the rest of the group. So me and Mike and Zero went to Pinche's. I've been to Pinche's several times, and it is the opposite of the luxury lounge, and I love it every bit. So listeners, for those of you who are new to the podcast, I lived in Mexico City for a couple of years. I used to eat Mexican street tacos, and Pinche's made me happy. I am super sad that it is closed at a location I used to frequent, and I will still go into, because one of my favorite bars in Vegas, Oak and Ivy, is in that same complex of shipping containers.
Yes.
Like, it's super cool.
Yeah, Container Park is still great. We hate to see Pinche's go. I will say Ben 702 Wine has charcuterie and sandwiches that's pretty good. There's some other options in there. But yeah, it kind of hurts losing Pinche's.
Yeah, charcuterie and sandwiches is not the same thing as Pinche Tacos. You're going there for an altogether different purpose. Also, it just occurred to me that I may be the only person in my part of Alabama who can anything vaguely correctly pronounce like the name Pinche Tacos, right? Like, I don't think anybody else here probably has that. It's not what we do.
Yeah, their language skills begin at rolling into a tide.
Which is very hard for those of us who graduated from Texas A&M. But then again, we're A&M fans. We deserve what we get. In other Vegas news, Scott from Vital Vegas says that Eater is cutting 15 staff members, likely including some city-specific writers. And we very much hope this doesn't impact Eater Vegas, because you and I mean, set aside this podcast and set aside the YouTube channel and the social media, Eater Vegas is one of those things that you and I use just kind of for recommendations. John, do you have any sort of inclination on when we'll know which specific staff members are going away?
Well, since this is at the stage of rumors that Scott gets a hold of that almost always prove to be true, usually the lag time between the rumor and the actual other shoe dropping is anywhere from 48 hours to a week. I suspect that Vegas will be spared. I think there are certain cities where if Eater's going to maintain a presence, it's there. I don't think anybody's reading Eater Des Moines if such a thing exists. Even Eater Austin, I wonder about because the market is, mid-sized market. I would think New York, LA, and Vegas will be okay. I certainly hope so. And to prove that we like Eater Vegas, and by the way, it's not always the best food review place. We tend to do Neon Feast for that. There's some other ones out there. Eater Vegas is famous for the listicles, and their listicles come with maps. So they have published a listicle with a map of what they say are the newest hot brunches in Vegas. Not necessarily new restaurants. Some of them are. Some of them are restaurants that did not do brunch once upon a time, but now they brunch. So, Bill, looking at that list, does anything stand out to you?
So, a couple of things. One, a lot of these locations are nowhere near tourist zones, or if they are near tourist zones, they're still inconvenient. And I won't lie, I like things that are either on the Strip or in or near the Fremont Street experience. It's not that I won't get in an Uber to go somewhere else, but I will. But a couple of things which stood out to me. One is Le Cave, which is there in the Wynn. I've been there before, and it's a phenomenal location for dinner. I had never thought of it as a brunch place, but I'd absolutely give Le Cave a shot, particularly the next time we're on the North Strip. We're trying to cobble together a trip in or around Resorts World. The other thing which didn't make sense to me is Atomic Golf, even further north on the Las Vegas Strip, because you and I have reservations in the evening in Atomic Golf when we're there in whatever, I guess it's 3 weeks from now. And it's not that Atomic Golf is a bad spot. I suspect it will be a lot of fun, and if we ask super nicely, they will probably sell us a beer. It's that I don't think of it as a brunch spot. Does that one make any sense to you, John?
I think from the viewpoint, for those who really enjoy golf on Sunday morning, but you don't want to go play 18 in Vegas, either because of the prices or the heat, Atomic Golf Sunday brunch would be a way to get your brunch fix without actually having to go play a round of golf. And since I'm terrible at golf, I would try to steer buddies who wanted golf in Vegas that way. That sounds like a pretty decent alternative to being out in 109-degree weather, hoping the cart girl shows up soon, and being bad at golf.
Also, I played golf yesterday, and two things. One, I actually got a par on a par 5 hole, which was impressive because I had played 8 holes in the previous 2 years. And two, the cart girl was not working. I played golf sober, John. Who do I sue and how many millions of dollars do I get for the absence of the cart girl while I was playing golf?
I don't even understand the word sober and golf in the same sentence, so I'm just going to move on. The one on this list that I would want to check out, despite the fact that it's a Mexican restaurant where the head chef's name is Jason McLeod, are we in the Highlander? I'm Jason McLeod of the Clan McLeod, and there can be only one taco. I don't understand what's happening. But Amaya at Cosmo, it's Tulum style, so it's that Mexican beach life kind of a thing. I think I would be down for that. I think they have, they've got a brioche churro French toast. It's everything that's wrong, but it sounds right. And I don't normally mimosa, but a grapefruit and sage mimosa, yeah, I could do that too. The crispy chilaquiles. Yeah, I think Amaya is the one on this list I would most likely gravitate towards.
I'm with you. I'd actually be willing to give all of that a shot. Well, in other news that we've talked about before in different aspects, Casino.org is reporting that the A's have their first serious institutional investor. So listeners, the A's are currently in Sacramento, were previously in Oakland, and have announced that they're going to start playing in Las Vegas in 2028. Their investor is Aramark Sports and Entertainment, which is a Philadelphia subsidiary of the company that may run your kid's college dorm or the food you ate the last time you were in the hospital. That's what they normally do. And they're investing $175 million into the franchise. That'll be $75 million of capital expenditures, $100 million into the team. What they get in return is that they're going to run concessions at the new stadium, but it turns out that running concessions is the thing they do, so cool. They also did that for the A's in Oakland. So I think this is good news for baseball in Vegas. And John, you and I have talked about this offline. There's increasing speculation about whether John Fisher has the money to pull this off. I absolutely believe that the A's play baseball in Vegas because too much has gotten into it. What I'm unclear about is whether John Fisher is the president of the team when that happens. But with this deal, that wouldn't matter. The A's have money that they have $175 million. They have almost 10%. They have 9% of the $2 billion that they're going to need to build that stadium. So I think that this is phenomenal good news for them. John, do you care who caters your stadium food?
Ignoring the fact that when I was at college, we had Aramark and the cafeteria food was so bad that many of us opted to eat cereal for 3 meals a day. I'm sure they will do a better job. I'm sure their stadium concessions are better. And I'm old, so that was forever ago. They had an item on the menu called stealth fries. And the only thing stealthy about these fries is you were never quite sure once you ate them when they would need to make an exit. So that's my Aramark experience, to be fair. But that was one college cafeteria in the 90s. So I'm hoping that's not the food at the stadium, although that might explain why ticket sales were slow in Oakland. But yeah, I'm with you. I do believe the stadium gets built in Vegas. I do believe it gets built on that location. I don't believe that the current ownership, at least as controlling owner and president, I don't think he's still there when this is all said and done. I think baseball twists him by the arm and tells him he's taking a new controlling partner and he could keep like 5% and grab a few jerseys from the gift shop on his way out of the building to let him save face. I don't think his tenure survives, but I think the stadium happens. I really do.
I think it does. Well, speaking of things that are getting built on the Strip, what's going on with Tillman Fertitta?
Well, we reported on this a couple episodes ago, so I guess we were ahead of the curve. It is now official that Tillman Fertitta has officially suspended plans to build on that lot on Harmon and the Las Vegas Strip directly across from Cosmo. Nobody's surprised by this. He's off being an ambassador in Italy. He just put a bunch of money into the Wynn. And right now is not the time to add luxury beds in Vegas. I would imagine he's going to collect that $15 a car parking revenue, $15 an hour a car parking revenue for the next few years. And when his time in Italy's up, I imagine he'll regroup and either reconsider his plans or possibly consider selling the land. So yeah, no surprises here. It's just nice to see him make it official.
It is. So we know how to plan, but I like a lot of his stuff. So Fertitta owns the Landry's, series of stuff in our home state of Texas. I like Landry's stuff. I would have enjoyed seeing him put a hotel on the Strip to kind of match what Golden Nugget is downtown. So
yeah, I think instead of that Post Oak luxury location, I think a more nice but accessible for the middle class location would be smart. I mean, I don't know. Call me crazy. Just call it Landry's Casino. Let's just be done with it. We know what we want.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we want seafood and an affordable hotel room on the Strip. So let's just call it Landry's and move on.
So, and that story was from casino.org. And one of the first new restaurant openings that I've been genuinely excited about in a very long time. According to KSNV and a whole lot of other sources, 2 Michelin-star Gymkhana, which is an Indian restaurant, is going to be coming to the Aria this fall. The original location is in London. And to me, the notion of Indian food in a 2 Michelin star place, that's a little bit hard to get my head around because I love Indian food. I think it's delicious. I just don't think of it as Michelin star sort of stuff. The other thing which is hard to get my head around is freaking Le Cirque is only 1 Michelin star. So this being 2 Michelin stars, again, it's blowing my mind, but I do love Indian food. And I do enjoy, I am the leader in the luxury lounge for a reason. So whenever this does open, I may press gang the rest of our group into going here. John, do you have any interest in going to this place?
Yes, I'm sold out for this. I'm wondering what spot in Aria. I'm assuming this is going in the space that was just vacated by Cathedral.
It would almost have to, yeah.
Yeah, so off of the lobby bar as you're going out to Miracle Mile Shops. I hope the location on the casino property doesn't hurt their success. But yeah, I am a fan of spicy foods, particularly when I've overdone it the night before. Not necessarily in the morning, but if they've got a happy hour or a lunch, yeah, some curry to kind of get me right when I was a little wrong the night before is a welcome addition. And it's at Aria. It's a 2 Michelin star. It's going to be some expensive curry, but I think I find it in my budget to hit this up.
All right. Well, then that is a thing I think we can do.
Well, moving on to some sad news. We talked about a couple of episodes ago that Kelly Clarkson canceled a couple of concerts because she wasn't feeling well and then canceled the residency or postponed the residency. Well, it turns out that her ex-husband was dealing with serious health issues and he passed away earlier today. So our sympathy goes out to Miss Clarkson and her family. And now we have a better understanding of why she put off shows. And I think we can all, I'm sure there are disappointed fans that planned their trip, but hopefully people understand that some things are more important than our concert experience.
No, that makes sense. Of course, the woman needs to be around for her kids. And while she was no longer married to the man, of course, there's going to be an emotional tug on all of them as a result of that. So may peace be upon all of them, and may light perpetual shine on her former husband and the daddy of her babies. I hope that family is okay.
Me too.
All right. Well, in less terrible news, according to the Associated Press, the Venetian has now signed a contract with the Culinary Workers Union. And that means that all of the major casinos on the Strip are now unionized. And folks, we're not going to make a judgment on whether casinos, or rather, we've made a judgment on whether casinos are good or bad. Turns out we spend a lot of money there. We're not going to make a judgment on unions or what should or should not happen. What we are going to observe is that what's going on in Las Vegas with all the major Strip casinos being unionized is different than the trend which has impacted the rest of the country. So, John, do you have any thoughts on what makes Las Vegas defy the national trends on unionization?
I think partially because the city thrives on hospitality, and that doesn't work without the workers. So I think that gives the workers a little bit of leverage, and they choose to exercise that leverage through a union. And we're not going to get into pro-union or anti-union on this podcast. I would hope most people who go to Vegas, and in your day-to-day life, I hope all of us think the people who take care of us ought to be paid fairly. And these workers have decided that the union is the way for them to do that. And these workers are so desperately needed by these casinos that the casinos have decided to play ball with that. And, I just hope that a deal was reached that's good for the casinos, good for management, good for the workers, and good for the tourists. And beyond that, however they got there, none of my business.
Absolutely. Well, John, I think we're drawing to a close, but before I do, I think you've got one even more somber note that you want to share with our listeners.
So listeners, we're going to forego our normal exit. We always promote our channel and we play the outro music, and we're going to close on a down note tonight. At the beginning of this month, Mark from 360 Vegas, and yes, I know what his last name looks like in writing, and no, I am not going to risk mispronouncing his last name in this recording. Mark had created over 500 episodes of the 360 Vegas podcast, participated in some other podcasts. I had a big influence on a lot of content creators in Vegas, some directly, some indirectly. I wouldn't say his podcast inspired ours, but I had been listening to it for a while before we started ours, so I can't say there was no influence either. Mark took his own life earlier this month. He had been very open up about his battle with mental health issues, and this struck a chord with me because my wife and I lost our firstborn to a game of Russian roulette back in January. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Bill and I personally knew Mark. Mark and I had interacted on social media several times. We had some private messages and public conversations on Twitter. I'd interacted with his wife, Karen, the same way. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend he was my friend. I never met him face to face. I really wanted to. But podcasting is a very intimate media. And I think it's fair to say if you listen to a few hundred episodes of a podcast, you start to feel like you know these people, even if you've never met them. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say, listeners, look, we're not a serious podcast. We talk about shenanigans in Vegas. We talk about booze and gambling in restaurants and hotels. It's weird for us to take a serious note. But I think anytime we get a chance to take a stand on this, we should. If you or anybody you know is dealing with mental health issues, whether or not they rise to the seriousness of potentially being life-threatening, please seek help. Please don't stigmatize people when they talk about their own mental health struggles. You know, we have all the sympathy in the world for somebody who has diabetes or heart disease. We're willing to talk about somebody's knee injury, and as Bill and I's age, we got friends getting hip replacements. But for some reason, when mental health comes up, we don't want to talk about it. And I think that's a shame as a culture, because I think we're going to keep losing more good people because we make it uncomfortable to have those conversations. I think, too, we make it uncomfortable how to work with people who are grieving losing a loved one this way. Anytime you lose somebody you love, it's a terrible thing. But when somebody you love takes their own life, the degree of second guessing and survivor's guilt that you go through is impossible to explain to somebody who hasn't been through it. And I don't want any listener to ever go through it. But when you're talking to somebody who's lost a loved one that way, just keep engaging us like we're real human beings. Sometimes people get so uncomfortable about these topics, they'll avoid people who've lost a spouse, a child, a friend this way. And I think if we're ever going to turn the tide on suicide and deaths caused by high-risk behavior in this country, it starts by normalizing talking about mental health, and it starts by normalizing letting people process grief in a way that doesn't deny their humanity. I don't know if Karen or any of Mark's family, or if J-Dubs or Tony or any of the other people in that podcast will hear a word I say today. If you happen to, just know, I don't know if you're religious. We don't talk religion on this podcast. I do pray for you. I think about you. I empathize with you because I've been there. It's not your fault. This isn't on you, and it's hard not to feel guilty, but it's not your fault. And to everybody else, usually I say happy travels. I think I want to close this episode with be kind to one another. On that note, we thank you so much for listening. And next week we'll come back. We'll be a little more upbeat in our more normal selves. But if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, please share with other people, and we'll catch you next time.